Welcome to the Journey 2020. I'm Charles Morrison. Normally you would see Dr. Robinson as doing our introduction to the show, to the Journey 2020. Want to welcome you. We have a very informative show for you today, and actually have a frat brother, and we celebrating 100 years. Haki Nkrumah. Nkrumah. I always want to say Nkrumah, but it's Nkrumah. And want to welcome you to the show because actually you were on the show, let me see, how long ago was it? It was, has it been a year?
Probably.
Really? Well, actually, you know what? We started the show, and I got to tell Dr. Robinson because you just reminded me, because we started the show last July.
Okay.
And it just came to me that we've been on a year now.
That's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. But last week, we actually had a gentleman on. Well, first of all, let me finish doing the intro right here. Let me finish saying that I am Charles Morse, and each week we try to come to you and try to bring you some information. And as we were saying, we've been on for a year now, and this is our 49th show. We've missed some weeks here and there, but overall, this is our 49th show. So, and it's funny that you would say that. I didn't realize that it's actually been a year.
Right.
You know, and it's for some odd reason it just didn't come to me, and we haven't even talked about it. Dr. Robinson and I. Right. He came to me because we've been doing work, as you know. I've been working with kids in my youth program for a very long time, and he came to me and said, "I want to do this show," and we. Through all the things that we've been doing through the television and the radio, when I was on WOKB and doing some things, I would invite him on to come on as a guest, as I was a guest along with Marion Edwards and a few other shows. And he just said, I think that we should do something together because he knows my passion and I know it's his passion. So it's funny because, like I said, I'm just thinking about it now. And it's actually, yes, it's been a year.
That's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. But we covered some of everything from A to Z on this show. But the funny thing is that I was talking to you a while back, and we have covered your program, Young Fathers of Central Florida. But for those out there who's tuning in, who tuning in for the first time and haven't heard about your wonderful program, won't you tell them exactly what it is?
Young Fathers Central Florida is an organization that I started in 2006. And it's a nonprofit 501c3. And our primary focus is on responsible fatherhood, young fathers in particular. We have 5 programs within the organization.
Right.
We have a dad-to-dad mentoring program. That program is a 1-year commitment that an older dad gives to a younger dad.
Now, when you say older dad, you just somebody that's...
Well, because our program, our younger dads are from 14 to 24.
Okay, from 14 to 24.
Yes, that's the age range.
Okay.
And so we have older fathers who are more experienced in being a father to mentor some of the younger guys, because unfortunately a lot of our younger fathers were raised in a household that did not have a father present.
Right.
So they might have a male figure, but they might not have had a consistent father. So we match an older dad with a younger dad just so they can see what it is to be a father.
But in reality, and not to throw you off, but the way God intended it, that's how it was supposed to be in the first place. And that is how we've now lost a generation, because that stopped taking place.
Absolutely.
Because growing up, we had role models, and life was such that even if it wasn't our father, it was a neighbor, it was a pastor, it was a coach, it was somebody that was there, an uncle, a neighbor, somebody that was a role model, that was that person.
Father figure.
Right,
Absolutely.
Exactly, the father figure. So you're doing it the right way, but go ahead.
Yeah, we definitely saw a need there, because when we worked with a lot of our younger fathers, especially our very young fathers, 15, 16-year-old guys, just having that older father, and they can be guys in their 30s or 40s or 50s, it didn't matter what age, but as long as that, they were a father who wanted to take time out to work with these young guys.
Right.
So that's why we ask young fathers all the time, you know, are they able to mentor? If they're able to mentor, we want them to help mentor these young men because they need to see it and hear it, and not just talk about it, but they need to see it and hear it. And it's a 1-year commitment. So any father that's listening, older father who wants to mentor one of our younger dads, they can contact us, and we'll be more than happy. It's not a strenuous process. They go through a 10-day training program, just talking about what mentoring is and what it is not. Because a lot of guys I know, they think they don't want to be a mentor because they think they have to solve problems. You know, they think they have to do some things that they don't necessarily have to do.
But don't you find that out to be one of the problems that we face when you actually run into why a lot of fathers don't show up because they got this image? And I know for myself that I even kind of had it for myself in a different way. What I thought a husband should be, what I thought a father should be. And I don't mean it to, my perspective was a little different, but I have found in just talking in general with men over time, because the perception of what they think they should be to the child, especially when you get caught up into, let's just say the child is in a situation where there may be another person there, and it could be a father figure, but they won't come around because of what the father can do for the child versus what they can't do for it. And I mean that a lot of times we don't understand it's not the material things that child need. The child may want the material things. The child may be asking for the material things. But at that time, we should know as parents what the child truly needs. Even though I may not be able to provide and give them the Christmas gifts or the birthday gifts or take them places that I think that I should be able to, but the time you spend with them is more important, because when they get older and mature to understand things about life, that's what's going to help that child understand and love you and appreciate you, because there's many children who grew up with things, and then when they get older, they go, my mother, my father gave me time. I mean, gave me things, but they didn't give me time. And they wanted it as a child because they were children. But then when they grow up, they realize like all they did was just give me stuff and just push me aside because we didn't spend quality time together.
Yeah, most kids, they don't care so much about material things. We teach them that. You know, it's like one of our requirements with our young fathers is that they all need to register and get a library card.
Okay.
What, a library card or a Dave and Buster or a Toys R Us card? Which one is more? So it's us that we give these. I mean, when you have babies, you see these little babies that's like 6 months with Jordan sneakers on. I mean, that child don't care anything about Jordan sneakers.
Right.
That's us.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
So as you mentioned, time. That's why having a library card. Guys tell me all the time, "Oh, Miss Haki, I don't know what to do with my, daughter or son, in terms of activities." Library has all types of learning activities. Doesn't cost anything. So they don't need to take their child to Toys R Us every time they see them, because a lot of our fathers are not primary caregivers, so they have to either make arrangement to pick up their child or what have you, and they just need to know that they don't need to just take them to the store or always just take them to McDonald's. There's a lot of activities that these young men can do with their children that's free. So, and a lot of them doesn't entail any materialism. It's like I said, that's us. That's the parents. That's why, a lot of parents I speak to, it's difficult being a parent, especially in this day and age.
Right.
It's very, very difficult, and that's why we continually do training, parent training programs and activities, because parenting is a ongoing learning process. That's ongoing. You're gonna learn to parent year after year after year. There's nothing that you just stop doing. So to me, if you know that this is an experience that's going to be continued, you should take as much time as you can to learn more and more and more, especially this day and age. With technology the way it is today, we just need to understand that that's very, very important that we continue to learn how to parent.
Right.
Everyone. I don't care if you was raised with a father, the mother and father at home or not. That doesn't say, okay, you're going to be a great parent.
Right.
So parenting is very, very important. So
Right,
that's why
right.
the dad-to-dad mentoring program, it gives that's why it's a year commitment. So the mentor is giving a year commitment, because that's the consistency that a lot of these young men need. They don't need inconsistency. They don't need men saying that, okay, I'll show up whenever I feel like showing up.
Right.
But they need a commitment and that consistency, and that's both with the mentor and the mentee. So that's why that program has served successful for us, because it's giving a lot of the young men that role model that they might not have ever had. So that's a very positive thing. And another program we have is our parent training, as I just mentioned, where we provide all types of training. Years ago, we only provided training for the father. But we've seen through the years that we needed to invite the mothers as well, because of a lot of the fathers, their child's mother, they don't have a clue either. They don't have a clue, and we assume just because they're the mother, a lot of guys assume, oh, she must know what to do.
Oh.
And that's the assumption, especially with young guys, because they oh, she's the mother, so she knows everything there is to know about being a mother, and a lot of young girls don't know. So that's why we invite the young man as well as the child's mother as well to get training.
Wow. It's funny because, but I just happened to be going through my mail, a member of the National Association of Black Journalists, and being on the listserv, you actually get to, they talk about things in the news, journalists from all around the world, as part of NABJ. And one of the topics, I didn't read it all, and I was intended, because when I saw it, I thought about you. There was a reporter who was suspended, but then he was actually demoted, and then he just quit. And then, of course, Fox News invited him on. I think he was on like the O'Reilly show or something like that. But basically, during his report, the comment that he gave was there was a situation where I think there was an encounter with some young black kids, and I think there may have been a shooting or something like that. But the statement that he made was, here's another situation of some young black kids who out doing what they're doing because they're growing up without any fathers.
Right. I think I saw that.
And I was like, wow. You would have to be very bold to make that statement, along with the bigotry and just the mindset. But the idea of that, but we could also do a show, and I know of the things in your encounters, because of the things that we encounter. I mean, I can sit up here and not to go off, from here to there, but it's just little things that we try to do just to try to make a difference, especially when you realize that these things are happening because of this. And these are the little simple things that can fix big things. But because of the way we are seen, and in the perception and who they think we are and how we are labeled, and not to get into, well, if I'm 1/3 of a human being, or I'm less than this, and I'm not this, and I'm not that, and we're not equal, and all this other stuff, which is a whole nother show. But won't you just kind of, for 2 seconds or two, just talk about some of the hurdles you have to overcome to try, what you had to overcome to try to get to where you are, with just the perception.
Yeah, it's a lot of obstacles. When I relocated from New York to
Oh wow, and
in 2006,
and I know that was an eye opener for you coming here.
Absolutely. And, I mean, guys actually bet how long it would take for our organization to fall.
Right.
I started it with my own money, Didn't know one person in the city. I didn't know one person in the state of Florida at the time.
Right.
Not one person. So I just remember the looks people gave me when I said I wanted to start a nonprofit working and providing services for teen and young fathers. I mean, it just sort of went past their
Right.
eyes. And it was amazing that the attitudes that people had about our young men, especially our young fathers. It was almost as though they just saw them as these sexual deviant predators.
Well, that's kind of like what
in the community,
right,
like
right.
like they were like pure evil.
Right.
And I was just surprised at the attitudes. I'm talking about from black folk, you know, our folk.
Well, yeah.
That was amazing. And the thing is that, and it's not just that, Chuck. It's not just black folks. It's even in the poor white communities. It's just this attitude of these. First of all, they have attitude about young men.
Right.
And then when they're a minority men, they definitely have a difficulty. So it was just a perception of young men as though it was always their fault, and not looking at the reality that most of these young boys, especially at the age of 15 and 16, whose fathers, the girls are usually older than them. You know, and and we don't pay attention to that. They might be 16, 17, or 18,
right.
And these young boys are 15 to 16. So we seem as though they're the predators. But if sometimes if you look at it, that's not always the case. And I'm not saying any of them are predators. I'm just saying that's.
But see, it's so funny because I was just having that conversation because one of my mentors, and he has 3 daughters, and which has nothing to do with him. Very passionate, understands, and we was watching a show, and the daughter was going out for the first time, and the father was talking to the son, and I can remember also seeing something on Facebook similar, and it was always the son, I mean the father talking to the son like, look, blah 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 blah. If you have any ideas, if I say be home at 12, that means she probably should be at the door at 11:45.
Right.
You know that kind of conversation. So I say, well, what do you say when it's really the daughter's idea? When the daughter is more aggressive than him? And nobody ever talks about that. The father of the family never talks about when the daughter may be more aggressive or if it's her idea.
We never want to talk about that. We never want to talk about that because it's taboo. Oh, what are you trying to blame the girl? It's like we never talk about that.
And what is so funny is that when you talk to a lot of mothers and they talk about their sons, they'll sit there and they'll tell you, I can't stand that girl because she keep calling my house. I keep telling her I read the letters she wrote, and oh my God, and and I've talked to mothers, and we're kind of getting off the subject a little bit, but I'm saying
it's all in the subject. It's the part of the subject we don't want to talk about.
Right.
That's basically what it is.
I guarantee you, if you had a panel of mothers with sons, and they tell you and ask you, well, why don't you talk about the girls? Those mothers, because you know how mothers are, they will go off because I've talked to more mothers about, for an example, the son does not want to be bothered with the girl or whatever happened. And the girl is so aggressive and da-da-da. And I've been in a situation where I've dated somebody who had a 15, 16-year-old girl, and her ex-husband, who was still in their lives, found the text messages on her phone along with the pictures. They was speechless because it was all her, and they was just thrown off.
Yeah, it's just society. We see it. We see our young men as these sexual predators,
right? These
deviants that's sexualizing our young innocent girls. You know, it's not about blaming anyone,
right?
But it's I spoke with a group of young ladies. They were all either pregnant or they had newborns, and we were just discussing, and they were asking me questions about guys. Why do guys do what they do? and several of them was like, well, Mr. Haki, why do these guys, why don't they care about their babies and so forth, and why they just disrespect us and leave us? And then I just asked them certain questions, like, you know, like, how long did you know him before you had sex with him? Now, this is your most prized possession.
Right, exactly.
Like, what game did he come up with to get in your pants in a couple weeks?
Right.
Like, what do you know about him?
Right.
Did you,
right.
Have you
exactly.
spoken to him about, if I get pregnant, what would you want me to do? Get abortion or not?
Right.
So, and it threw some of the young ladies off, but then some of them really wanted to talk about it, because I basically was telling them that unless he rapes you, you gave him permission.
Well,
and you allowed him,
right.
Whether you know him for a week or 2 weeks, if you know nothing about this young man, why would you give him your most prized possession?
Right.
You know, and he's not around because he don't care about you and Lil Raheem.
Right.
He don't love you.
Right.
He don't love Lil Raheem.
Let me ask you the question. What was the typical response when you was having this conversation? When you had that conversation, how did they respond back to you?
Those young women responded in a way that it was self-reflecting, because they started thinking about it. They started thinking about, okay, how long did I actually know him before I had sex with him? And not only had sex with him, unprotected.
Right.
So that means you had sex with this young man and didn't use anything. That's how you end up being pregnant.
Right.
Like, so it was almost a little silence in the room at points, and it was a situation because they knew that I wasn't blaming them.
Right.
But they also knew that they had to look at themselves and wonder, like, why isn't this young man caring about me or his child? You know, did that young man even grow up around a father? What does he know about being a father? But, you know, did you ever talk to him about that?
But that's totally separate from the situation. That's totally separate from the situation because of their perception. And the funny thing is, you still had that conversation with women that's 30, 40, and 50 years old. It is absolutely amazing that you still had that same conversation.
Absolutely. Chuck, that's like a whole that's like 3 or 4 shows.
Exactly.
But I don't really, my goal is to work with them in being responsible fathers.
Right.
I don't go into, you know, why did you have sex with her? I just don't do that because.
Oh no. Well, first of all, now I can be. This is no. I'm saying this is the journey 2020.
Right.
Okay, this is journey 2020. And I can say we don't have to have that conversation because we both know already. Right. So we don't have to have that conversation. You and I both know, and we could be real with each other.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I get it.
Right.
You get it.
Right.
And a lot of times people don't want to step into the realization of what's real.
Right.
Okay. And they want to live on their emotions and what they think and how I should feel. Okay. This don't have nothing to do with how I feel.
Right.
This is who I am and this is what I desire. Now, as I get older, I mature, but that's a whole nother.
Right. The emotions is, you know, the emotions are just blinding. It blinds people.
Right.
And they don't want to talk about it. But as I mentioned, my goal is to work with these young men and say, well, I don't care if she tracked you down and gave you something. I don't care.
Right.
You still did it.
Right. Yeah.
So if you did it, even though she allowed you to have sex with her without a condom, you chose not to use the condom. So you're responsible for your actions. So that's what I do. But at the same time, we have to really look at the whole picture.
Okay. Now, what is the typical response with most of the young men when you try to explain to them that you have to be just as much accountable? Because I mean, I understand the mindset. I understand when you're young and your perception and you got that, you know, because that's what's going on. That I'm focused because What's the typical response when you try to explain to them that you have to be just as much responsible because you have to be accountable because that's your child as well? What's the typical response when you get
It's on them. A lot of the guys' attitude is, well, they gave it up, and that's on them. They almost feel as though, because guys, they have their wifey, then they have their jump off, and, they have their side chick. So they got their wifey, the side chick, they jump off. So they got them categorized.
Oh yeah, right.
And these young women and they know that. The young women know that.
But
And so their attitude is that it's on them. They gave it up, so they don't want their face their responsibility. That's why we deal with responsible fatherhood, because they don't want to feel responsible. They don't want to be responsible. They just want to go around town just slinging their little stuff wherever they want to do it.
Right now,
without responsibility.
But what happens when the court system catch up with them?
The problem is that when they're young, especially when they're younger than 18, the court system not even bothering.
Oh, really?
No, they're not bothering. That's why young fathers have no advocacy, because they're too young to vote, so politicians don't really care about them. Child support is not really chasing them because they know most of them don't have a job. African American young boys in the United States, their unemployment rate is 40% almost in some places. During the Great Depression, unemployment was 22%. So these young men living in past the Great Depression, if you want to look at it that way. So this sense of responsibility is just not there. They don't care. Their attitudes is that she gave it up, it's on her, and they look at the young women like almost as though like they're whores or they're irresponsible. How would you because they even look at it like, you don't know nothing about me. I don't have a job. I don't have nothing. I don't have nothing. I don't own nothing. I don't have anything in terms of material or something to give them other than them, themselves. So their attitude is just irresponsible. Period. They're just irresponsible, and I'm not saying all of them, of course.
Right.
But that's the general response, because some of the young ladies, when this young man has a girlfriend, this young girl knows he has a girlfriend. Oh, I'm gonna take him from her, so I'm gonna have sex with him. These young guys just roll in like, hey, and that's why I asked some of the ladies. Young ladies, like, what is he telling? What are these guys telling you to get you to give yourself to them in a way that's no protection, no anything, just the self-esteem with a lot of these women come into play. So there's just there's just a lot that's entailed with this. And when women approach me and say, hey, I like what you're doing, can I help? And so there's a lot of organization for young women, a lot more. I have the only 501c3 nonprofit that work with young fathers in this entire state. A lot of these women need to work with these young girls because they have a lot of issues. They have a lot of issues. A lot of them were abused as young women themselves. So there's a lot to it, Chuck. This is not just an easy story, and that's why people like to brush it under the rug, especially when it comes.
We've been doing this for a long time, man. We've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, people don't want to.
We've been doing this for a long time.
Better. Look, I would meet people, and it would almost be like, oh, you work with young fathers. Oh, that's an admirable thing. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. They try to get away from me. Some people say, "Oh, there come Haki. He gonna talk about them young fathers." Those. Chuck, I don't care what people say, what they think. We're gonna continue to work with these young fathers.
That's the key.
Help them to understand that they need to be responsible. I don't care if 25 women lay down with you. If you did that, you got 20. Well, you better be responsible for those 25 children. And Chuck, we don't beg them. We don't chase them. I don't chase them. I'm not doing that. We don't do that. You need to be responsible because it's going to catch you one way or another.
Okay.
Sooner or later. And as society, if we don't want to put resources into organizations that work with these young fathers. People often ask me, a lot of my colleagues say, why do you still work with these bad young ones? Why don't you work with the older guys? Because I did a survey in 2010 at the International Fatherhood Conference in New Orleans, and there was about 1,000 men and a couple hundred women, and they had organizations throughout the country. And I asked what was the average age they began engaging fathers. And the average age was 26, 27. Wow. So here we are allowing now these organizations throughout the country that work with fathers, they begin engaging fathers at age 26, 27.
That's crazy.
So we're giving our young men 10 years to be dysfunctional and absent fathers.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, but it's just a reality. Because it's easier working with older guys. A 35, 40-year-old guy, he knows what child support is. Chances are he's dealing with child support.
But it's almost like you dibble and dabble, because here you probably can statistically write things down on paper better.
Right. It's just easier working with older fathers. They don't want to work with the teens. First of all, they say they're too difficult, and so that's why they look at me like, why are you working with these teens? But those are the ones that we need to really focus on, because a 35, 40-year-old man, he's not continually having babies, but that 15, 16-year-old young man, he's having babies and not even thinking about it. Right. So he's going to continue having babies. So we need to get him at that young age so that he can understand what fatherhood is, because the best birth control in the world is responsible fatherhood. Once you see what fatherhood is, you start keeping it in your pants. Once you start seeing what it actually means when you become a father, the responsibility you have. Right. So that's why working with these young men, we continue to work with the most difficult part, because we know teens in general, any parent know that working with any teen, a girl, boy, it's difficult working with them, or even raising them. Right. But we have to. We can't leave that entire segment of our population, the most isolated group of parents on earth. Right. That young parent, especially that young father. So that's why we work with that group in particular, because they're the group, and it's not easy. Now, no one wants to give you money. We have to, if I had an organization working with young women, I'll be flush with money. No one wants to give you money because they think about it. Oh, that little bad little, he should have kept it in his pants. Or no one wants to give you money. No one wants to give you a dime. We could do a fundraiser and people look at you like you crazy. What? You working with minority teens, dads? Well, they shouldn't have done it. They shouldn't have. Wow. Man, it's just amazing the obstacles that we have. But you know what? We're going to just keep fighting. We're going to continue to work with these young men, because we need to stop waiting till Martin Luther King Day or Black History Month to say our children are our future. People want to wait till it's Martin Luther King Day or it's Black History Month. Then we want to say that. No, 12 months a year, we need to understand that our children are our future, and these young men, and particularly these young fathers, they are our future. And if we don't work with them now, they're going to continually have children irresponsibly. They're going to continue to isolate themselves. They're going to continue to be irresponsible. So that's why we work with them. Okay, well, we're going to segue into our conversation that had you a little upset. Which, let me go back to last week's show, which can segue into now. Last week we had a gentleman on that was from the Hilton Hotel. I think his name is Robert Lacey. They actually have 80 job openings coming up. They have a 3-day job fair, a wellness. I will send you the flyer. Okay. But what was neat about this this gentleman who started out at the Hilton as I think as a dishwasher, that he is now a manager. But this gentleman says that he believes in giving second chances. He was very adamant about the fact that if you've been arrested, if you have a record or anything like that, they're willing to work with you. If it hasn't been anything violent, or let's just say if it was something violent, if there's a period of 5 years that has gone by and you have kept your nose clean,
we can work with you.
Right.
So I was like, wow, I know some people that need to, take part in this. As a matter of fact, my nephew just called me, and he's in the area, so he definitely needs to learn more about this. But we were talking, Hakeem, and I saw that you were very, very, very upset and disappointed because of the opportunities and the hard work, as you just showed, in your passion and the things that you do in trying to help these young men. And I think you had 50 job openings. Won't you talk about that as well?
Well, I was upset because
Well, first go into the jobs and what you do with the organization setting up jobs.
Right.
Okay.
Well, we work with a lot of companies and agencies to help our young men with employment. And Rodney Williams with the City of Orlando, Family Parks and Recreations, he said, okay, Haki, we're going to work with you, and we're going to set aside some jobs for, your guys. And what was disturbing to me is over half of the jobs that were available to these young men, half of them couldn't pass a drug test.
Wow.
Okay, they came up positive on their drug test. And with society the way it is today, and employment in our economy, not to secure a job because you couldn't stop smoking weed is just disturbing.
Right.
To me, and like I was angry about it, as you mentioned,
right.
Because you don't oftentimes get an agency that says, okay, we're going to work with you, or a company and say, we're going to set aside these, X amount of jobs for you. And I met with a lot of the guys, and they were disappointed. They said, Miss Haki, we know we disappointed you, and I told them, with the discrimination we have against African Americans in this country in terms of employment, and there's a lot of racism involved, we know, they sit back and kind of laugh at these guys like, I don't even have to discriminate against you. You just putting the chains on your wrist yourself.
Right.
Here you are, you smoking weed, you're going to get drug tested, and you continue to smoke weed, and they got all these little silly little ways to pass drug tests, drink this, drink that. Half of it doesn't work. So, we just have to focus on a lot of these young men, the misconceptions they have about what life is,
right?
What it's all about. That's why that mentoring program is so important. They, it's more to it than job training programs. All these programs, writing a resume and all this. Okay, he's a 16-year-old kid. What kind of resume he's gonna write?
Right.
So we focus on things that's not even relevant with a lot of these young men, but we're not talking about the things that are relevant. And the responsibility again goes back to, you have to be responsible for your actions. So if you know you need a job, and all these young men needed these jobs,
right? They
were jobs that were needed, but they couldn't even get past that first stage. That's why we began to, whenever we do any job training or employment training programs, we always begin with that one thing: are you smoking weed? Are you using drugs? Straight out.
Right.
I tell the guys, look, you smoking weed. If you smoking weed, you don't need to sign up for this now. What you need to do is stop smoking for a period of time, at least 30 days, 60 days, and then you come back to us, because I'm not going to send you to a job and you've been smoking weed, and you're not going to pass this drug test, because then it's going to mess it up for the young men that come after you. So it's almost, when you talk about zero tolerance, that's what zero tolerance mean. And I don't care, you don't live in Colorado. Don't be talking about Colorado and Minnesota. I don't care where, you don't live there. You live in Florida.
Right.
All right. It's not legal here.
Right.
You can't smoke weed here. And those people who wouldn't want to hire you in the first place, they sitting back and laughing, saying these dumb blank, 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 coming in here, and I don't even have a discriminator, against them. They putting the shackles on themselves. So we don't work with young men who are not honest with us and forthcoming to their activities in terms of drugs.
A couple of things. You kind of hit on it, but I'm going to ask you again. The ones that didn't pass, you said that they did apologize to you.
Yeah, some of them did because they know what I do, and like some of these young men I didn't know, but the ones that I did know, they did apologize because they said, Miss Haki, I did this. That's when I started realizing all these little, I don't know what to call them, these little methods that they use to try to pass a drug test when they know they drinking vinegar and all these little crazy little things that they do to try to pass a drug test. I don't care what little remedy that you have, your little homeboy remedy or what have you.
It's not working.
Yeah, it's not. You drug tested Monday, but then you're gonna smoke weed Friday and Saturday. Then you're gonna take some ginseng and whatever, put a sock around your neck. All that craziness. I don't. That's just not acceptable. You know what I'm saying? That's just not acceptable.
I'm sorry, you got me laughing because I can see him sitting there and the wheel spinning.
And they believe that, And who told you? Leroy told you over here. Leroy hasn't had a job in 10 years, but he gonna tell you, man, this is what I do. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. But I just don't have tolerance for that, Chuck. There's too many young men.
Because you work too hard.
Right.
You work too hard.
Too many young men who not doing that garbage.
Right.
And they need a job and they can get a job. And you coming in here playing games. We just don't have time or the resources to play games with these young men. And some of them get upset. Oh, Miss Haki, you want us to be perfect. No, I don't. Oh. I don't want you to be perfect. What I want you to do is be responsible. You have a child now. Right. Period. So all this other garbage you've been doing is not going to fly here. It don't fly.
No, let me ask you this.
I get too comfortable talking with you, Jack.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But now, what is the repercussions of them not passing the drug test?
There's no repercussion. That's the problem. The repercussions is that they don't get the job.
Well, no. What I mean by that is, I actually asked it wrong. When they don't pass the drug test, is there a period of time when they can apply for it again?
No.
Okay.
No, that job is gone.
Okay.
And the negative repercussion in terms of me, even though like Rodney, for example, City of Orlando, I know him. Right. He know me. He's familiar with my program.
Right.
So it's not like he's gonna tell me never.
Right.
He's not gonna say don't bring these guys to me again. No. But there's some companies that you work with when that happens, they don't want to deal with you anymore.
Wow.
They don't want to deal, and so that's the repercussion. What they do is they say these blank. They don't want to work. Look at them. They can't even pass a drug test. They all lazy and druggies anyway. So just like I said, those individual companies and that want to discriminate against you, they don't even have to anymore because we're doing it ourselves, a lot of us. And that's what bothers me. Now, then there's others who, all of them didn't fail the drug test, but there's a lot of obstacles that these young men face that it's just that we're not dealing with. You had young guys who don't even have identification, no picture ID. One of our programs, I mentioned two, but a third program is our Gentleman program, which is a 8-week character development program and etiquette program for 10 to 13-year-old boys. And the other day, the last session we were talking about how many, we asked the question, how many had a photo ID? And there's 17 young boys in the room, and one had photo ID. Then we talked about Trayvon Martin and him not having the proper identification, and we talked about, and how his father, through his phone, knew what happened, but a lot of too many young African American young boys and girls throughout the country, they're walking back and forth from school a mile, 2 miles. They don't have any identification. So we were talking about the importance of that, and then we started talking about if you don't have identification and you're in an accident, and let's say you
Right.
you pass away, you could be buried as a John Doe.
Right.
They were like,
Yeah.
what's a John Doe? So and one of the staff came in and they heard what we were talking about. They said, wow, we didn't know you get into stuff like that with them. I said, yes, our young boys and girls need to know all these things. And they shouldn't walk around not knowing their phone number, not having photo identification. So we were talking about that in this Just a Gentleman program. Mm-hmm. So it's just important that these young men know the things that they need in order to even think about a job. Mm-hmm. You don't. When I worked at Valencia, I was surprised. I was a coordinator of Missions and Records, and I was surprised how many of our young men and women didn't even have the proper identification to get residency, Florida residency.
Right.
Because at Valencia, back when I worked, maybe 5 or 6 years I worked there, 5 or 6 years ago, it was about $850 for in-state residents, the cost for a semester. Mm-hmm. And out-of-state was $3,000, was over $3,000. So, every individual has to prove their residency.
Right.
And it was surprising how many young men and women could not even enroll in school because they didn't have documentation to show their residency. So whether it's a job, whether it's getting in school, all these, our young men and women need to know what they need.
It's funny because
it's more than just a resume. Resume. Give me a break. 15-year-old kid.
I do this all the time because as I get older, I try to position myself and I think back when I'm dealing with the youth, and I try so hard to be in their shoes and try to figure out what my mind was when I was that age. Mm-hmm. And I know sometimes they're looking at me because that's what I try to do. I try to process that, and I try to think back when I was their age and how did I think and how did I see things. Mm-hmm. Because even my nephew, I think he's like 27, mm-hmm. and sometimes I look at him because you don't want to be negative, mm-hmm. but sometimes I look at him and I have conversation with him and you just want to say, boy? It's like, and it's funny because I was just talking to him the other day and I said something to him. I said, Joy, I'm not your father, but if I was, you would know this. Mm-hmm. And this has nothing to do with my brother. But I said to him, I said, Joy, the only reason I'm having this conversation with you is because I love you. Mm-hmm. Now, you may not like what I'm saying to you. He go, I love you. He said, I know why you're having this conversation with me. And I said, you may be ticked off at me and you may be mad at me, but I got to have this conversation with you. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing other than just being responsible and just things that you would see and understand. Mm-hmm. They just take it for granted for some odd reason of something. But, I say that just to say that it just appears that 30, when I was a kid, when my mom was 30, I think 30 now is like 20. Mm-hmm. And it's just sometimes you see the young people and you look at them and it's not a matter of just picking on them but not understanding certain things or just being accountable to be that old or to be where they are. And you just look at them sometimes and you just have to count to 10. Well, let me count to 10 before I respond.
That's parenting. Yeah, that's parenting because you have those parents who are, as you mentioned, had their son or daughter at 15, 16.
Right.
They don't want to stay and be responsible themselves a lot of times. And then you have the parents who grew up, they might have grown up poor. Right. But they're more financially secure now, so they want to give their child everything that they didn't have, and then they spoil them. I never forget my brother said that he you know, he told me, he said, don't spoil your kids, because his children, you know, they spoiled them because, you know, they just wanted them to have everything, and there was no accountability.
You know what? It's funny because I don't have kids, but I've never understood that philosophy. I've never understood that.
A lot of parents
just don't get that.
Especially
because
when they get money.
Right.
When they
because
get
the way
money.
that I look at it, and this is honestly how I look at it. I look at my grandmother and I look at my mother. And especially my mother, who was a blue collar worker. Very nice lady, hardworking, and the things that she had to do. And so when I see, for an example, a niece or nephew of my child, my first thought of, well, who the heck are you? That you can't. And that's what I'm saying. If my grandmother and my mother had to do this, my thought of, like, who the heck are you?
Right.
I don't get that. I don't get why all of a sudden, because I have this, that you shouldn't. I don't get why my child can't work at Burger King. I don't get why my child can't work at McDonald's. I don't care if I got this much money in the bank. That's what you need to do. Right. There's a lesson there. You need to learn how to be humble. So I just don't get that. I want you to have more than what I had. Really? I don't get that.
Yeah, especially when they affluent. I'm telling you, when they make money, they really.
But see, my thing is, to me as a parent, it's not that I have to give you the things. To me, my job as a parent is to help you understand your ability, and for you to learn in life there's nothing you can't do.
Right.
And to always have self-confidence in yourself, believe in yourself, and help prepare you for your journey. I'm not here to pay your journey. Right. I'm here to help you start your journey, so when you go out into the world, you're prepared, not necessarily financially, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Right. That's what my job is. So I don't get that. I don't have kids, but maybe I'm wrong about that. So I don't know.
Yeah, you know? Well, a lot of the parents, it's just like when I was in college, I was in undergrad school. I worked in the law library. I worked in the cafeteria. I worked all over. And a lot of parents feel that once they get to a certain level in their lives, that's like beneath their child to do that type of work. Well, I did that because I had to, but you shouldn't have to do that. And a lot of them think that, and what ends up happening is that these young men and women, they expect things to be given to them.
You know what?
They don't expect to work
every day. And now this has something to do with this, but I'll share with you. Every day, I pray that God give me the spirit that there's no feet that I can't wash. And I'm telling you, I pray that prayer, and I pray that God keeps me that humble.
You got kids that think that's beneath them.
But there is not a feet that I cannot wash, and I'm serious. Right. So to think that way is just mind-boggling to me, because the older I get, the more I understand who I should be. And that spirit isn't even in the not even in the room, to think that there's something, a job that a person can't do. And the funny thing is that as you tease someone about a job at McDonald's, but if they're hitting you in the back of the head, trying to bust your head open to take your money because they don't have any money, somehow or another that job at McDonald's seemed to be a very decent, wholesome job. But we don't think like that.
That's parenting, man. That's Chuck. It's just parenting. It's just like when you have the parent who thinks that they need to work every hour of the day and not even spend any time with their children.
Right,
but
that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, when actuality they don't have to work as much, but it's just parenting. All that is parenting. There's, as the saying goes, there's no what is it? This parenting is the hardest job you ever love.
Right, like right.
But it's just difficult. Parenting in our country in general is just not enough of the concern of continually to learn how to parent, because that's the most difficult job there is to me. Parenting.
Oh yeah. Well, see,
and we don't. How is it that parenting is one of the most difficult jobs you ever have, but we stop trying to learn more about parenting? We don't. We'll go on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but we don't talk about parenting. And that's why a lot of our children are just not parented. They're not raised. We have this saying in my house, well, I guess that's how he was raised or how she was raised. It's just a lack of parenting, and we really need to discuss that more. We have all type of seminars and workshop, how to make $1 million, how to do this, but when it comes to parenting, that's why one of our programs I spoke about is parent training, not just for our young parents. One of our other programs is our father support groups, and we talk a lot about parenting there, because it's difficult, especially this day and age. With technology and society is moving so quick, like you mentioned, a young lady that had wrote all this information, but it's those individuals who want to do harm to our children have easy access to our children, and some of our parents don't know how easy it is for our young children to be corrupted and manipulated.
Right.
So there should be more parent training programs, more parent training classes to help parents understand how things work in our society. But some parents, they don't want to deal with what's difficult. They rather just work and I not deal with this and expect their child to just grow up mythically. They're gonna grow up and I don't have any responsibility. All I gotta do is keep the lights on, as Chris Rock said, and get the big piece of chicken.
Right. Yeah.
That's what we thinking about.
Right.
But in the meantime, I have a young man, 12 years old, one of the youngest situations I've had in terms of young parents.
The father, he's
12-year-old father and the 12-year-old mother.
Wow.
Now the young lady, the young girl, 12-year-old girl, her mother wants to give the child up for adoption.
Okay.
And the young man, his parents want to raise the child.
Okay.
And they're fighting over it, about it. And the young man's mom said, Haki, why do they hate us? Why wouldn't they want us to raise a child? They don't have to do that. And I said, they don't hate you. The mother doesn't hate you. It's just that she want to get rid of this child out of her, this baby out of her child's life. She feels she's 12 years old, but so much came out of that. Find out the girl was raped at 9, and I was telling the mom of the young man that there's a lot of disappointment with the mom, how she feels in a way that she let her daughter down. Like, how did my daughter get pregnant at age 12?
Right.
So I told the mom of the young man that she doesn't really hate you. She's feeling a lot of disappointment with herself.
Right.
And she doesn't want this child. She want to get rid of the child altogether. She don't want to constantly be reminded of that situation. And so, and as I mentioned to the mother of the young lady that, they want to raise this child. Once that young man gets that DNA test and to show that that's his child, the court's going to go on his side more than likely.
All right.
Because they want to raise the child. So a lot of times parents, their disappointments that they feel with raising their children.
Right.
A lot of times, I'm not a parent expert,
but yeah, but
that's just all my years of experience. That have shown me that.
Probably the advice that I probably would have given the mother of the son after I explained it to her is that I probably would have told her, if you could, you need to build a relationship where you can put your arms around her and talk to her.
The mother.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the mother wasn't talking to anyone at the time.
Right.
So because
Right.
the father of the young woman, he wants to talk,
Mm-hmm.
and he's, give her some time. I'll talk to her, because the father the father doesn't want the child to be put up for adoption. Right. So, hopefully we get to that point. Right. But she has to realize that, it's not going to work the way she wants it to work. She wants the child to be put up for adoption, and everything goes away, and life is
it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen.
But it's just a sense of disappointment.
Right.
And, any parent will feel that if they see that their child is 12 years old and is pregnant, a lot of parents will feel like, wow, what didn't I do? And that's, when we talk about responsibility, a lot of parents just have to take responsibility for their actions as well, because all these young fathers I work with, they have mothers, they have fathers, and they're 14, 15, 16. They went and got a girl pregnant, so the girl didn't rape them. Right. So, a lot of parents need to look at the responsibility side of it as well. Not that there's always someone to blame. A lot of times people think there's always got to be someone to blame. Things happen the way they happen sometimes.
Life happens.
Right. But a lot of parents need to be responsible. They need to see, like, what did I do? What didn't I do? I mean, they need to look at the situation and stop, trying to ignore it. And that's the nature of my business. What I deal with is that a lot of people in denial. A lot of people in denial. They, like you said, they don't want it to happen. I had this mother once tell me, oh, she's a little whore. She wants to spread her legs all over the city. No, that was the only boyfriend she ever had. Didn't you know that? Why are you saying she's a whore and she's spreading her legs open all the boys all over? Right. That's just disappointment in her. Her.
Last word for you. If you want to give out any information, if you are looking for volunteers, is anything you want to say? If you want people to get in contact with you, if you're looking for people that can give money, give you the last word.
Our 5 programs. I start talking about our 5 programs. Our dad-to-dad mentoring. Mm-hmm. Our what I didn't mention was our Teen Fatherhood Academy, which is a 6-month developmental program for dads 14 and 19. A father support group, Just a Gentleman, and our parent training. So those are the 5 programs that we have. We're always looking for volunteers. It doesn't matter what it is that you do. It's funny because a lot of guys say, "Oh, Haki, I didn't mentor because I'm not a lawyer or a doctor." No, I don't care what your profession is, just as long as it's legitimate, and you're a responsible father. And even if you don't want to make a year commitment, we have mentors who make less of a commitment. So it doesn't have to be a year commitment. So we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for financial support, even though, people just, when it comes to financial support, they, just like I said, teen and young fathers, they keep their money in their pocket. They keep their money in their pocket, and not all of them. We have supporters. We've had supporters because we've been, we opened our doors in 2006, and it's 2014 now. It's a long time, right? Guys, like I said, they used to bet and say, "Oh, he gonna last a year or two." It's funny how they tell me now how they used to bet. Right. They said, "Man, we like you now. You last." And I said, "A lot of y'all lost money if you was betting that we were," because people just is not attractive to support our young men. Right. It's not. It's just not attractive. And our president has to develop a program, My Brother's Keeper, for people to begin to even think about it. Right. And that's our younger boys. It's just like I remember the first time I went to Disney and tried to get money from them, and they'll support our younger boys, but that 14 to 19 range, that's the most isolated group of young men, and we should really look at that. We should really look at ourselves and say, do we financially support this group of young men? You know, and these are the ones that are either gonna go bad or good in that age range. They're either gonna be ones that carrying your bag or snatching your bag.
Right.
They're gonna be one of those groups. They're deciding what they're gonna do, and we just have to stop ignoring them. So I just hope that we just stop ignoring our young boys between that age of 14 to 19. We can look at all the studies in the world and show how our boys at a younger age are more active in school, they're more engaging, but then it starts to change when they get from that 12 to 19 years. Things started changing. The dynamics started changing.
Right.
And we're going to either deal with it like mature individuals, or we're going to act as though it's what they call it, the pixie dust. What's it, Disney? Is that what they call it? We're gonna act like it's Disney and it doesn't exist.
Right.
And you know, but that's what I end with. You know, we have to start supporting, and whether it's my organization or any other organization that work with our young men in that age range.
Okay. Is there a website or a phone number you want to give out?
Our website is Young Fathers of Central Florida. .com. Oh yeah, we just started the Young Father Institute at Bethune-Cookman University as well. Okay. And that's a groundbreaking initiative that we're doing, working with the fathers in Daytona, whether they're students or whether they're from the community. Okay. And also we're starting our Young Father Initiative with the city of Orlando. At our satellite location would be Northwest Community Center.
Great place to be.
Yes, and we're working with cause everybody say, Haki, why you always going in Hood, Paramore, or Pine Hills, or whatever? Well, that's where we're supposed to be.
Right.
That's where we're supposed to be.
That's where you're supposed to be.
So they can reach us at our website. My email is umoja12 umoja12 at AOL.com, and our number is 407-423-9400.
Okay.
407-423-9400.
We'll post all of that on the site.
Okay.
All right. Well, I want to thank you.
I appreciate you inviting me on. It's like, I like having interviews on the couch.
All right. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to say good night to you. Also going to let you know that keep Dr. Robinson in your prayers. He's actually going under the knife for a little surgery, so he's going to be out for a while. So we want to make sure that we keep him in our prayers. So as he would say, the journey is from me to you and from you to me. So everyone have a great weekend.